By the time Dagon met John again, both men had become difficult to move. This was not only age. Age helped, of course. Age is a stone placed slowly in the robe. Knees become negotiators. Sleep arrives when it wishes and leaves before gratitude. A man's back begins keeping records no scribe requested, but grief had weight too, so did witness, so did names. Dagon carried enough names by then to bend a younger man. Mara, Mary, Peter, Stephen. Yos, who had outlived theft but not fever. Eliezer, grown into his name and then beyond Dagon's reach as children must if parents have done anything right. Paul, impossible Paul, dead or near enough in rumor that argument had begun turning him into property. Rome had taken many. Time had taken the rest by quieter roads. John remained. That was what people said with the uneasy awe reserved for old trees, old wounds. And men who had seen too much to be corrected casually. John remained. Dagon found him in a room near Ephesus, though rooms near important cities like to pretend they are not part of the city when danger comes. Ephesus itself sat in the lap of Artemis, whose temple was one of the things travelers from the east counted on their fingers as among the 7 wonders of the inhabited world, and whose silversmith's Paul had famously enraged a generation earlier. The Jewish community in Ephesus was old and large and threaded through the gymnasium and the harbor and the woolen dye trade, and the believers among them had learned over the years to keep their houses in side streets where the Greeks' processions did not pass, and the Roman magistrates did not look hard. The house belonged to believers with enough means to hide poverty without erasing it. Lamps burned low. A table sat near the wall with sheets of papyrus from Egypt and parchment from Asia Minor in different colors and thicknesses, scraps, a cup of darkened ink made from soot and gum, a knife for scraping, and a young copyist trying not to stare at the old men as if staring could teach him how to survive memory. John sat by the lamp, smaller than Dagon remembered. That offended him. The young should be warned that great men become smaller if they live long enough and more dangerous because of it. John's hair had thinned white. His hands looked like roots under skin. His eyes, however, had refused age in the most irritating way. They were not young. Worse, they were present. Dagon, John said, hearing his name in that voice crossed too many years at once. Dagon leaned on his staff and considered pretending he had not been moved. His face betrayed him. Mara would have enjoyed that. John, he said, you came far. Roads keep failing to ask my permission. John smiled, not much enough. Sit before your knees, preach rebellion. They have been heretics for years. The copyist looked up too quickly, unsure whether joking near John was allowed. John saw and laughed softly. Write that down if you must write something useless. The boy blushed. Dagon liked him immediately. Poor child, they brought water. Dagon drank slowly because old men who drink too fast become entertainment for the young. John watched him with the patience of a fisherman who knew when a line had weight on it. You have heard, John said. I have heard too much. About what? Which death do you want first? The room lowered. John did not look away. Good. Dagon had no patience left for old men who pretended old age made grief philosophical. Peter, John said. Dagon nodded. Paul. Another nod. James before them. Yes. Others by roads worse reported. Yes. The copyist's hand had gone still near the ink. Dagon looked at him. Do not make their deaths clean when you write, he said. The boy swallowed. John said, he is not writing that. He will write something. Yes. Then he should know. John leaned back. Tell him. Dagon hated him for that, only a little. He looked at the copyist. Death usually smells worse than courage. Remember that. Men love making the dead useful before the ground cools. They will say martyrdom, glory, crown, witness. All true, perhaps, but also blood, rope, fever, fear, mothers, wives, friends carrying news badly. If you write only glory, the grieving will think God has no room for their stomachs. The boy's face had gone pale. John nodded once. That will do. The words returned across decades. Dagon looked at him sharply. John's smile deepened. He said that to you? Once. More than once, I imagine. He was careless with kindness. No, John said, precise. Dagon looked at the lamp. Beside it lay a small mark scratched on a scrap, a bird, badly drawn, the wing wrong. His throat closed before he could stop it. Where did you get that? John followed his gaze. From a letter copy that came through a house in Asia. The mark was used to show a saying about a feast. Dagon shut his eyes. Lee, Micah, Mara. Bread moving farther than feet. The feast did not end, John said. Dagon opened his eyes. It changed rooms. The copyist looked between them. He had the bright terror of a young man realizing a phrase had a body behind it. John touched the scrap with one finger. They said it came from road witnesses after Jerusalem. Everything comes from road witnesses if you wait long enough. Did it? Dagon sat in the chair they had offered because his knees had begun winning arguments. Some? Tell me some. You have your own. Yes. Better ones, not the same ones. That was the trap. The old John was very old, not weaker, more economical. Dagon looked at the papers near the lamp. You are riding him. John was quiet long enough that the room listened. We are bearing witness, he said. Ink, yes. Pages, yes. Selections, yes. That is a polite word for losses. John's face changed. Good, Dagon had struck something true. It is, John said. The answer disarmed him. He had wanted argument. Old age made honest men inconvenient. John looked toward the copyist. Leave us the lamp and bring more oil. The boy obeyed with visible disappointment. When they were alone, John leaned forward. Living voices are thinning. Dagon knew. Of course he knew. Every year had taken a voice. Some by sword, some by prison, some by a memory failing at the edge of a story and never returning. The young were hungry for words from mouths that had seen Jesus, and the mouths were becoming fewer, drier, less certain in small things, more certain in what mattered. Then speak, Dagon said. I have, more, I do. Then why write? John looked at the lamp flame, because speech dies in rooms unless rooms multiply. Dagon did not answer. That was a strong sentence and deserved the courtesy of standing unbothered. John continued. Because some now know him only through those who knew, because arguments grow where memory thins, because men make him less flesh when they want him easier to obey, because others make him only flesh when they want him safer to admire, because the children ask what he was like, and if we only say Lord, they may never understand he was tired. Dagon's hand closed on the staff. Write that. Which? Tired. John watched him. You came to correct me. If needed. Good. Do not say good like him. I knew him longer. I met him worse. John laughed then. It broke into a cough. Dagon waited, frightened by how fragile the sound became. John recovered and wiped his mouth with a cloth. Tell me, John said. What you fear we will lose. Dagon looked around the room. Lamps, ink, scraps, a cup, old hands, young hands not yet stained enough, a bird mark. The smell of oil and dust and sea air somewhere beyond the walls. If you write him too high, Dagon said, men like I was will think he never sat low enough to find us. John's eyes warmed and sharpened in the same moment. Then we write that the word became flesh. Dagon frowned. That sounds high. It begins high so no one can make him small, and flesh, so no one can keep him out of hunger. Dagon leaned back. That, annoyingly, was good. Flesh gets hungry. Then we remember bread. Flesh gets thirsty. Then we remember water. Flesh has friends. Then we remember he loved them. Flesh gets angry. Then we remember the temple. Flesh weeps. John's face changed. Then we remember Lazarus. Dagon did not know that story as John knew it, but he knew the look. Some memories remained private even after being written because the page could hold the event but not the full weather of the heart. Flesh dies, Dagon said. John closed his eyes. Then we remember the cross. Flesh leaves. Then we remember love. Dagon looked down at his hands. They had become old without asking. He told me once, Dagon said, or I remembered him telling me, perhaps old men make rooms in memory and invite the dead to speak. Love is true and faith in love is the truest faith. John did not answer quickly. When he did, his voice was soft. That sounds like something he could have made true by saying it. We named my son Eliezer after. God has helped. Mara said that. And you argued? Dagon smiled. No. John looked delighted in the quiet way of old men who have outlived the need to show delight too widely. Growth. Do not become proud of me. It will damage both of us. The copyist returned with oil. He entered carefully, sensing the room had shifted and resenting that he had missed the shift. Dagon understood. The young always arrive just after the old have said the sentence they will spend years trying to recover. John motioned him closer. Read the ending. The boy picked up a sheet. His voice shook at first, then steadied. He read about many other things Jesus did, too many for the world to contain if written one by one. Dagon felt the sentence before understanding it. Loss named honestly, not failure. Abundance, the world itself too small for all of him. When the boy finished, the room was quiet. Dagon wiped his face with the heel of his hand and blamed age for the water there. That will do, he said. John smiled. I hope so. It does not contain him. No. Good. Yes. But it gives enough. John looked at the lamp, the ink, the bird mark, the boy, Dagon's old hands, the open doorway where younger believers waited without seeming to wait. Enough to lead them to life, he said. Dagon nodded. That was different from enough to answer everything. Better. Before he left, John took the scrap with the bird mark and placed it in Dagon's hand. No, Dagon said. Take it. It came here for writing. It has done that. Then what? Carry it back to a room. Dagon closed his fingers around the scrap. I am old. Then travel shortly. You have become rude. I learned from durable men. Dagon stood slowly. The copyist moved to help. Dagon waved him off, then accepted the help when his knees proved theological points about humility. At the door, he looked back. John sat by the lamp, smaller than memory and larger than history would manage. Behind him, the young copyist bent over the page. Ink waited. Oil burned. Outside, Asia breathed in languages Dagon had learned badly and loved better than before. Most of them were gone. That was true, but gone was not the same as ended. Dagon had learned that from the first empty room after bread broke. The feast had